$14 million landed on the table in front of my sister, neat and final, like a verdict everyone had been waiting to hear. The attorney slid the summary toward her, voice smooth, practiced. Catherine's breath caught just enough to be noticed. My mother's hand closed over my sister's wrist, nails pressing lightly, possessively. Pride radiated from her smile. Then the paper turned toward me. $1, the attorney continued, tone unchanged, as if reading grocery items rather than rewriting a family's hierarchy. A soft laugh escaped my mother before she could stop it. Not embarrassed. Amused. Well, she murmured, lips curving. I suppose that clears things up. My father leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes already drifting away. Some people contribute. Others explore hobbies. Catherine didn't look at me. She was busy studying the numbers that promised her freedom, comfort, validation. $14 million, locked in a trust, but still hers. Entirely hers. The attorney placed a thin envelope beside my single dollar. My name written across the front in my grandfather's familiar hand. Is that everything my mother prompted, already reaching for her purse? Impatience sharpened by certainty. Before the attorney could answer, I felt the room tilt not from shock, but from recognition. This moment wasn't new. It was simply louder than the others. If you've ever been quietly sorted into the wrong category by your own family, you already know this silence. Stay with me. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team of the channel Revenge Mosaicum, inspired by real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotion, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. The attorney adjusted his glasses, gaze steady now. There is a recorded message. Attendance is mandatory for all beneficiaries. My father's jaw tightened. My mother froze mid-stand. Mandatory changed everything. I curled my fingers around the envelope. $1 rested beneath it, light as a joke. Somewhere inside that paper, my grandfather had left me something else. I didn't know what it was yet, only that he had never wasted a move. And whatever came next, they were going to have to sit through it with me. Growing up in the Monroe house meant learning early what mattered and what didn't. Posture, my mother would remind us at the dinner table, her smile fixed, eyes sharp. People notice everything. Catherine absorbed those lessons like oxygen. Straight A's, internships with impressive names, conversations polished until they sparkled. My parents watched her like an investment paying dividends. When I mentioned volunteering on weekends, my father's brow would crease with concern. That's fine for now. Just don't confuse passion with a plan. My mother's voice usually followed, lighter but sharper. You don't want to limit yourself, Eliza. Some interests are meant to stay small. At family gatherings, Catherine's updates were announced like press releases, promotions, bonuses, invitations. Applause followed automatically. My turn always arrived quieter. Eliza is still figuring things out. My mother liked to offer, as if translating an embarrassment into something presentable. Only my grandfather never played along. Across crowded rooms, his eyes would meet mine, steady and amused. Later, with a hand resting on my shoulder, he would murmur, "You see things others walk past. That's not a flaw." When my parents dismissed environmental work as impractical, his voice cut through gently but firmly. Not everything valuable shows up on a balance sheet. Those moments mattered more than I understood then. They were small, almost invisible, but they were real. And they were the reason the envelope on the table didn't feel empty. It felt intentional. The screen flickered once, then settled on my grandfather's face. Time had thinned him, but his eyes were the same sharp, patient, already several moves ahead. If you're watching this, his voice carried evenly, then you're sitting exactly where I expected you to be. My mother shifted, smile tightening. Charles always loved drama, she whispered, meant for the room to hear. On screen. he continued without pause. He thanked Samuel Brooks for decades of honesty. He spoke Rosa Delgado's name with warmth, calling her the heart of his home. When he reached my parents, the tone cooled. Margot, William, he noted, measured and precise. You taught your daughters the value of appearances. I chose to test character. My sister leaned forward when her name followed. Catherine, your inheritance has been placed in trust, he explained. Quarterly distributions, no early withdrawals. Money reveals who we are over time. Her confidence flickered, just for a moment. Then his gaze shifted, and I felt it land directly on me. Eliza, he continued. Softer now. You receive $1, and the first key. My mother's breath escaped in a sharp, satisfied sound. Of course she does. The attorney cleared his throat, clearly uneasy. Grandfather raised a hand on screen, as if anticipating the interruption. No one is to interfere with what follows. Any attempt to contest this will manipulate its execution, or pressure the process will trigger the charitable remainder clause. Everything else goes to charity. My father straightened. That's excessive. That, my grandfather replied calmly, is intentional. The video ended. Silence followed, heavier than before. I looked down at the envelope again. It was no longer light. It was leverage, and suddenly, every person in that room needed me far more than they wanted to admit. I didn't open the envelope until I was far enough away that turning back would feel like surrender. Inside, a single key rested against a folded note. My grandfather's handwriting leaned slightly to the right, confident even in ink. Chess. The note read, "The setup matters more than the first move. Trust your timing, nothing else. No comfort, no explanation, just permission to think." The road stretched ahead, long enough for memories to surface uninvited. Summer mornings at the cabin, coffee brewed too strong, my grandfather watching the water instead of the clock, no one correcting my posture, no one asking what looked impressive. By the time I pulled into the gravel drive, my chest felt tight but steady. The cabin door opened easily. The familiar quiet wrapped around me for half a second. Then tires crunched behind me. A black SUV rolled in, followed by a second car I recognized instantly. Catherine stepped out first, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We thought it made sense to come together. My mother followed, already surveying the place. This is bigger than you, Eliza. Family decisions require unity. My father didn't bother with softness. We're not letting you handle something this significant alone. The instructions were clear. The words left me before doubt could catch up. My mother's expression sharpened. Don't be difficult. You've never been good at understanding what's at stake. Catherine's voice slipped in quietly. Strained. Let's just not break anything important. Important, apparently, had finally been redefined. I turned back toward the door. Key cool in my palm. They could hover. They could watch. They could wait. But the first move was mine. And for once, I didn't hesitate before making it. The study had always been my grandfather's refuge. Seeing my parents step into it felt like a violation. My father moved first, fingers brushing the filing cabinet. If there's anything relevant, it will be documented. My mother's gaze skimmed the shelves with practiced judgment. All this sentiment. He should have kept things simpler. On the desk sat a framed photo I had never seen my grandfather standing in front of a modest office building. Younger. Proud. Beaumont Microsystems was printed beneath it. That company went nowhere. My mother dismissed quickly. Too quickly. A leather-bound notebook lay beside it, worn at the edges. I reached for it, but my father's presence closed in. Careful. Those records concern all of us. I shifted away, heart pounding, and noticed the chessnight near the lamp. Its base felt loose in my hand, a twist, a soft click. Inside, a folded note. Combination equals the date of betrayal. My mother's smile vanished. Put that down." Before anyone could stop me, the rug in the corner peeled back to reveal a floor, safe. Numbers surfaced in my mind, sharp and unwanted. The dial turned. The lock released. Inside waited a thick envelope and a black notebook. My father reached out. "You don't understand what you're holding." My mother's voice dropped, dangerous and precise. "You've always struggled emotionally. Eliza, this pressure isn't healthy." The words landed exactly where they were meant to. Catherine stepped between us, breath shallow. "Stop. If this goes wrong, everything disappears. $14 million doesn't survive a mistake." Silence followed, heavy with truth. I gathered the contents against my chest. I'm reading this alone. My father's jaw tightened. My mother looked at me as if seeing a stranger. For the first time, that didn't frighten me. It felt necessary. I didn't go far, just far enough to breathe without being watched. The innkeeper recognized me instantly, sympathy soft but restrained. "Your grandfather stayed here often," she offered, sliding a key across the counter. He liked rooms where people didn't interrupt his thinking. The door closed behind me, and the silence finally felt earned. I spread the contents of the envelope across the bed. The black notebook came first. Inside, columns of figures, properties, licensing notes clean, methodical, undeniable. The total eclipsed anything mentioned at the will reading. $38 million, traced patiently across decades. My hands shook as I opened the letter tucked inside. Mandy, my grandfather had written, the nickname grounding me. "What you saw was never the full truth. Money hides easily. Motive does not." The next instruction was simple. "Call Mercer. Ask for the Beaumont Microsystems file." The attorney's voice on the phone carried no surprise. "Your grandfather expected this call. The documents are ready." The files arrived minutes later. Contracts, memos, timelines. Beaumont Microsystems had not failed. It had been pushed. A legal opinion signed by my father warned of imaginary threats. An internal acquisition note carried my mother's name. 6 months later, the technology exploded in value under a different banner. The consulting agreement sat at the bottom of the file, backdated, carefully disguised, $1,400,000 paid quietly for betrayal. The room felt smaller with every page. Another message from my grandfather surfaced at the end of the notebook. They thought I never noticed. I waited until I was certain. Certainty had a weight to it. It pressed against my ribs, steady and unforgiving. For the first time, the envelope made sense. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about exposure. And I was done pretending not to see it. They didn't wait for me to return before rewriting the story. My phone lit up with a message from Catherine. "Mom's worried. Dad thinks this is getting unhealthy." No concern for what I had found, only for how it looked. A voicemail followed minutes later. My mother's voice carefully composed. "Sweetheart, we're getting calls. People are asking questions. You sound overwhelmed. Let us handle this before you hurt yourself. Hurt yourself." The phrase carried weight in the wrong places. An email arrived from my father soon after, copied to the attorney. "Eliza is under significant emotional strain. We're concerned about her capacity to make objective decisions at this time." Objective. As if the documents on my bed were imaginary. As if truth bent to tone. Another message flashed in. This one shorter, sharper. "You don't want people thinking you're unstable," my mother warned. "That label sticks." I closed the laptop slowly. This was familiar territory. Whenever something threatened the family image, someone else became the problem. Noise was framed as imbalance. Resistance as fragility. Catherine called next, voice low, rushed. They're scared. If Mercer believes them, the clause activates. $14 million vanishes. Please, don't do anything drastic. Drastic, like reading. Like remembering, I'm going back. The words settled without shaking. A pause stretched on the line. That's not wise. Neither was lying to Grandpa for decades. Silence followed, thicker than before. I packed the files carefully, each page aligned, deliberate. They wanted a narrative where I was the risk, the liability, the unpredictable variable. I had spent my entire life shrinking to make that easier. Not tonight. If they wanted a problem, I would stop being quiet about it. And if the truth made them uncomfortable, that was no longer my responsibility. They were on the deck when I returned, wine glasses half full, voices casual. This place could double in value, my father noted, already measuring futures that weren't his. My mother glanced up, smile thin. We were just talking logistics. I set the folder on the table. Papers spread like a map no one wanted to read. That's enough. My father cut in. You're spiraling. Before I could respond, headlights washed across the windows. A knock followed, precise and final. The attorney stepped inside. Calm as ever, accompanied by 2 witnesses and a technician carrying a slim case. It's 7 o'clock, he announced. As instructed, my mother's composure cracked. This is harassment. The technician powered on a tablet. Video filled the screen. My mother tearing pages from an album. My father speaking into his phone about rezoning. Catherine hovering, silent, calculating. The attorney's voice stayed level. The property has active security monitoring. Notice was posted. This footage exists to enforce trust conditions. My father surged forward, anger flashing. You can't use that. Attempting to interfere would trigger the charitable remainder clause. The attorney replied, Everything transfers immediately. Catherine's face drained of color. You promised this was safe. It was, my mother snapped, until she ruined it. The attorney turned to me. Your grandfather outlined 2 paths. One involves litigation. The other implements his final structure. You have 48 hours to decide. Silence swallowed the deck. The attorney played one last audio clip before leaving. My grandfather's voice filled the space. Forgiveness is optional. Wisdom is mandatory. The door closed behind them. My parents stared at me as if waiting for mercy. What they saw instead was certainty, and for the first time, the house wasn't listening to them anymore. We gathered the next morning with fewer words and clearer faces. The attorney laid out the final documents, calm and exact. My parents sat stiffly, dignity held together by habit. Catherine kept her hands folded, eyes lowered. The cabin transfers for $1, the attorney confirmed. Ownership to Rosa Delgado. Rosa's breath caught. I would keep it as he loved it. That was the point. The words left me steady, unburdened. The remainder of the estate moved next, locked into a charitable remainder trust, structured so I could guide it without taking from it. No performance, no leverage, just purpose. My mother laughed once, sharp and hollow, after everything we built. What you built still stands. My voice stayed even. You just don't control the audience anymore. My father rose, anger restrained by exhaustion. You're walking away. I'm choosing differently. Catherine stepped forward, signing her statement, the pen hesitating only once. I don't get to keep everything. Her admission landed quietly, but I get to stop lying. We left without embraces. Weeks later, a postcard arrived. The cabin porch light glowed at dusk. Rosa's handwriting read, He would be at peace. I kept the journal and the chestnut. Nothing else. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever learned that truth costs less than silence, carry it forward. Share it. Stay close. Some stories don't end with winning. They end with becoming free.